All right, today we're diving deep into the shadows, into the super high-stakes world of World War II spies. We're going to look at the incredible, ingenious tools they used to send messages that were literally unbreakable. You know, for the agents of the Special Operations Executive, that's the SOE, working way behind enemy lines, their only connection back to London was this tiny little Morse code signal. But just think about it. Every time they pressed that key, they were rolling the dice with their own lives. Every single message sent was a massive gamble. So let's really get into why this was so deadly. For German intelligence, forget just finding the spies. Their number one priority, finding the radios. Because if you capture an operator, you've hit the jackpot. You can get intel, you can send fake messages back to London, and you could wipe out an entire resistance network. Just like that. And the risks, I mean, they were just off the charts. Look at this. For every 4 radio operators sent into the field, 1 was captured. 1 in 4. Let that sink in. And capture meant interrogation, torture, and pretty much a guaranteed execution. It wasn't just a job, it was practically a death sentence. So, the big question is, how on earth do you protect these people? Well, the solution had 2 parts. And the first part was all about the hardware. They had to build a special kind of radio, one designed to be a total ghost in the machine. Okay, so 2 really iconic radios came out of this. On the British side, you had the Paraset, which was this absolute masterpiece of minimalism. I mean, it was all about being tiny and easy to hide. Then you had the Americans with their OSS, and they developed the SSTR-1. It was a bit beefier, more powerful, and more modular. But the cool thing? Both were designed to fit inside an ordinary suitcase, ready to go at a moment's notice. The whole idea behind the Paraset was just brutal simplicity. Think about it. It had to be light enough to carry, tough enough to survive being dropped out of a plane. And here's the really genius part. You had to be able to fix it with parts you could steal from a regular radio you'd find in someone's house. I mean, what a lifesaver when you're deep in enemy territory. They stripped out everything that wasn't absolutely essential. It didn't even have a volume knob. Okay, but this is probably the cleverest thing about the whole radio. Instead of using delicate meters to tune the thing, which could easily break or give you away, the operators used regular old flashlight bulbs. You just tweak the antenna until the bulb glowed its brightest, and boom, you were at peak power. It's just such a brilliant, simple fix for a super high-stakes problem. But, you know, having the world's sneakiest radio doesn't mean a thing if the enemy can actually read what you're sending. And that brings us to part 2 of the solution, which you could argue was even more important. We're talking about the code itself. And it wasn't some complicated machine. It was just pencil and paper. It was called the one-time pad, and it provided perfect, absolute secrecy. So what is a one-time pad, or OTP? Well, it's pretty much what it sounds like. It's a pad of paper, and every page is filled with totally random numbers. Each sheet is a key that you use for one single message. And then you're done with it. And the thing is, if you do it right, it is mathematically, provably 100% unbreakable. Period. All right, so here's how it worked. It was super methodical. First, you take your message and you turn the letters into numbers. Simple enough. Then you take the random numbers from your one-time pad for that day and you subtract them from your message numbers. You send that garbled mess of numbers over the radio, and then, and this is the most important part, you destroy that sheet of paper. Burn it. You never, ever reuse a key. And here is where the real magic happens. It's all in the math. See, with normal subtraction, you sometimes have to borrow from the next number over, right? Well, this system doesn't do that. Each number is calculated all on its own. What this means for a code breaker is that there are no patterns at all. It's like trying to solve an equation with 2 unknowns, the original message and the random key. It's just impossible. It's perfect noise. Okay, so our agent has their tiny radio and their unbreakable code. They're all set. But the second they start transmitting, a clock starts ticking. And it's a deadly one. See, the Germans were incredibly good at this stuff. They had this whole network of listening stations just scanning, listening for anything. The moment they picked up a signal, they'd send out these special vans to triangulate the agent's position. They even had guys on the street in plain clothes with signal detectors disguised as wristwatches, narrowing it down to the exact building. It was a terrifyingly efficient system. At the start of the war, the agents were told, okay, you've got about 15 minutes. That was considered their safe window to transmit and get out. But the Germans just kept getting better. faster, more accurate. And that 15-minute window, it shrank, and it shrank fast. Pretty soon, the new rule was just 5 minutes. 5 minutes on the air, and then you had to run for your life. So just picture this. You have 300 seconds. In that time, you have to find a spot, unpack your radio, string up an antenna, tune the set, send your message, pack everything back up, and just vanish. All before the door gets kicked in. Can you even imagine that kind of pressure? So what happened with this perfect secret? What's its legacy? Well, it turns out it had a huge impact, long after the war was over. You might be surprised to learn that the basic idea for the one-time pad actually came about way back in the 1880s. But it was its perfect security that made it so critical in the 20th century. After the SOE used it so successfully, it got an even bigger job. During the absolute height of the Cold War, this was the system they used for the Washington-Moscow hotline. That's right, the red phone. That's how much they trusted it. And what about the radios themselves? Well, they were considered so good, so sensitive, that they were basically too dangerous to let live. Agents were ordered to destroy their parasets before coming home, and any that did make it back were taken apart. The Allies were literally afraid of their own invention falling into Soviet hands. That's why today, there are probably fewer than 40 originals left in the entire world. Which brings us to a really fascinating final question. Right now, we live in an age of crazy digital surveillance. We're talking about quantum computers that can break modern encryption, and yet the only method that is still considered truly 100% unbreakable is this one: a pencil and a random piece of paper. It's an amazing reminder that sometimes the most perfect secret needs no technology at all.